thanks for joining us on Next Level Up. Today's guest is Katherine Lehman, founder of KT Creativity. She's a fractional CMO helping B2B SaaS startups go from marketing chaos to marketing clarity. What sets her apart is how she pairs people first leadership with systems first discipline. Katherine, it's great to be with you.
It is great to be here. Thanks for having me as a guest.
Yeah, I love the fact that I think you said you can't eat clicks, you can't eat impressions when you were talking to my producer. So you obviously learned that kind of early as a creative, but talk to me like even a little bit further before that. How does a yoga certified artist go down this pathway?
So it's so funny you mentioned the yoga piece because I had someone tell me the other day, I teach fitness on the weekends, and that's not really part of my scope of practice in marketing, but I had someone tell me that I'm basically 10 people in a trench coat. And it's a really funny image to have in your head, but in the Wayback Machine at the beginning of my career, I basically was a creative. I started in graphic design. I loved designing websites back when the internet was still young. And I loved the art side of it, the being creative.
Yeah.
However, my backup career choice was an accountant. So I also had a really big love of numbers and math. And I can only think of one career where those fit together really beautifully, and that's marketing.
Nice. That's interesting. Most creatives I know shy away from math, so that's pretty
Agree.
cool. So, talk to me a little bit further. So, when you saw that kind of merger between those two interests, how
Yeah.
did that pull? How did that actually pull you into marketing?
It pulled me in because I had a professor in college that actually honed in on the fact that I was good at business and I was good at thinking like a business person. And he owned his own practice. And he said, "Hey, there's this new thing called Facebook. I'm not really sure how it works, but I think I should be using it for business. You seem to be really good with this kind of thinking. Can you help me build a social media presence for my business?" And I didn't know that that was marketing at the time. I was still in design land, but he was my
Right.
first client. He was my first client. He hired me to build a social media marketing arm for his business. And I was
Nice.
like, "Ooh, this is interesting. I like this. It's not just
Yeah.
pushing some colors across a page." So that was my first foray into it. And 17 years later, I've been consultant, full time, back and forth. And now I have my own practice as what I consider myself a full-time fractional advisor. And it's been a lot of learning on the fly, both leading teams internally and doing it externally, and learning some really cool tricks along the way. The latest of which is, of course, AI.
Yeah. Right. And we'll get into that. Everybody wants to talk about those two letters like it's gone out of style already.
Mm.
Um, but obviously, you're kind of moving into what it seems to be the latest kind of trend, which is fractional work. Mainly, I would assert the same reason I am on the technology side is people need our expertise, but they don't necessarily either have the funds or need for a full-time, you know, resource or person. So talk to me a little bit more about, what had you go all in on the fractional model.
Yeah, I think there's a really strong use case right now for fractionals because you've got two groups of people. You have the people who like to do full time and that's what they're looking for. And I call there's some fractionals I come across where it's fractional for now, where they're doing
Yeah.
fractional work until they get full time. And then there's fractionals forever, which is where I consider myself. And
Hmm.
it's a good time to be in this industry because companies are cash strapped, especially early stage startups where I like to work a lot of my time
Yep.
have the money yet, or they don't have the function carved out, or they just don't know what to do next. And you need somebody that's been there and done it to build it, but you can't necessarily afford, a $300,000 a year CMO
Right.
that seat when you have only 10 spaces on your team. On the other side of it, on my enterprise clients and some of my larger clients, they've been in business a long time and they've maybe had a CMO for a long time or something like that. And they've lost the ability to see their business from a fresh perspective. Everyone's always saying, think outside the box. But when you've been living inside your own machine for so long, it's really hard to get fresh eyes and get fresh perspective about the latest and greatest in the industry unless you go outside. So
Yeah.
sometimes I work with teams to kind of fix what's broken and unstick the machine in a way that is different than building everything from the first time.
Yeah, I get that. I think it was Einstein who says you can't be in a system and fix a system at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's hard, when you wake up every day selling X, to think outside the box. A really, really good point.
Yeah.
So obviously you kind of brought it up. So I don't, it was a good segue. Just one question early is, so now the whole big thing is we don't need anybody in the marketing. We'll just throw in a chat GPT prompt and it'll spit out everything I need to make this thing go. So start poking holes in why I know that is a failed thinking. But for people who listen out there, what is it that AI does well and what is it that it doesn't do well?
I think there's a lot that it does well in terms of efficiencies and making you go faster. But anybody who knows faster is not always better. And I
Mm,
think one of the main things that AI is giving us is the ability to go really fast and break things, but not enough people are paying attention to what it's actually putting out. And
mm,
that's where you kind of get into the whole ethical game. But for me, it always comes back to what are the rules? What are the rules of engagement? What is the structure that is in place? I always come back to the quote from, I think it was James Clear in Atomic Habits, said, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." So
yeah,
what I'm seeing right now is a lot of people haphazardly using AI, but there's no systems. There's no framework around how to use it and how to make it effective. And that's where people are starting to fall down, where they're like, AI can do everything, but there's no structure around it. So how do you
right.
build something structured within, the everything?
And the other thing that I would assert it hasn't figured out yet is your decades of experience or mine, right? It's like that thinking is when it's just a LLM lookup, that doesn't do the same thing as a human. And that's where I agree with you. It's like having a power saw versus a old saw, but it doesn't replace the carpenter. It
No.
just makes them go a little better.
Yeah, and leaning into my past a little bit, earlier in my career, I rode the marketing automation boom, where I was on a team full of marketers and we were leading the team, and we got this new thing called marketing automation. And it's in a defunct now program, but now you got HubSpot and everything else.
Yeah,
And I remember the team going into a panic and being like, well, if we do marketing automation, we're going to automate ourselves out of a job. And I go, doesn't matter how smart the machine is, you still need someone to run the machine, right? Yeah,
yeah,
you had assembly lines replacing, people building cars, but you still need someone to fix the machine. And that is really where the systems come into place because until you have a structured machine, you can't really scale with it. You can't scale chaos. You can only scale systems. So if you don't have a
yeah.
system, just have a couple of tools floating around, you're not really going to get any scale out of that. That's not where the growth is going to happen.
And what's it take? Let's say you were to come into my company and help me overhaul, whatever it is, bad branding or just the messaging doesn't match what we're actually attaching. Like, what does it normally take to do that kind of assessment for somebody?
What does it take to do the assessment in
Well,
general?
just like, yeah, yeah, timing wise and effort.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. So I like to look at it holistically. You said in the beginning that you can't pay the bills with clicks, right? So a lot of times, leaders across the board will say, "Where's my MQLs? Where's my clicks? Where's my leads? Where's this, that, and the other?"
yeah,
But I really do like to look at the machine as a whole. What is the marketing machine's goal? And spoiler alert, it's revenue, right?
yeah,
Revenue and pipeline pays the bills. If you don't have revenue and pipeline, you really don't have anything to show for your work. Brand marketing is part of that, but you have to reserve your expectations in a certain way. So I look at all the pieces that are in play. If it's a new company, a lot of startups tend to have basically a shopping cart full of tools in their tech stack that they're basically trying to patch in. Instead of hiring people, they're just getting a lot of software technologies. And in B2B
yeah,
SaaS, we love software, we sell software, so we buy software.
right,
So I'll look at all the tools that are in place, all the people that are in place, resources, interior, exterior, look at all the things that have already been done and what are the immediate problems? What are the immediate roadblocks in place of growth? And everybody always likes to say that it's people. Oh, we don't have enough people to do this. We don't have enough people to do this. So then the next step after that is, well, can we get AI to replace the people?
right.
And that is a conversation I've probably had 30 times in the last 3 months as I'm talking to different clients that I work with and prospects, that it doesn't matter if you have more AI bots doing the work, it still matters what is the structure, what is the system behind it, what are your goals that are going to accomplish it. And the best way I can describe this is what are the rules of engagement, right? When you go to
Yeah.
play a new game, you need to know what the pieces are, you need to know what the rules are. And if you're playing with 10 different people and nobody knows what the rules are, you're not going to get anything out of it, right? You're going to be playing with yourself. So it's the same
Yeah.
with AI. It's setting expectations of how can AI patch in some of those gaps. After I get the assessment, then I can build in something that makes sense for the company. Sometimes that's a team, sometimes that's AI, sometimes it's a hybrid of both. Sometimes it's new tech, sometimes it's old tech, sometimes it's just getting rid of a lot of the noise and focusing on what matters and focusing on three things to be good at. So it really depends on the company and what stage they're at. But
Mhm.
new companies have just as many problems as older companies with noise, right? They've
Yeah.
all things, and they're just going to keep adding shiny things to the thing because they're going to think that it's going to solve all their problems. But really,
Yeah.
sometimes you need to blank page it and go to the next chapter.
And how much are like KPI or quality gates key to kind of assessing whatever you guys are doing, whether it's being successful, whether you're getting those systems mapped and working?
You have to have KPIs that tell the story that you're trying to tell. So if your KPIs, events is a good one, right? If your
Uh-huh.
KPIs for events are leads, you're never going to get a true representation of the value of that event because you can't count conversations. You can't count the number of people that went and told someone else at that event about it. So your KPI has to actually match what you're actually measuring to the best of your ability and accept that not everything is going to be measurable the way you want it to be measurable. I think a lot of companies put an overemphasis on those MQLs and lead counts and things like that. And I've had companies that said, "Oh, I got 300 MQLs this year." And I'm like, "Great, how much pipeline do you have?" "Nothing."
Yeah.
"Okay, well, then why are you cheering for achieving your goal? Because the end goal is always pipeline." And then I've
Yep.
had companies that have had 20 leads that were huge deals that drove way over the pipeline goal, but marketing was still seen as a failure because they didn't hit their MQL goal. So
Yeah.
the metrics have to tell the story of what's going on at each of those things. So if you're saying events, we can do events, they're going to do this. We can say demand gen's going to do this. We can say content's going to do this and have those metrics in mind, but they should all add up to a story at the end and not be so critical of those individual pieces that we're picking them apart and losing them in the noise.
Yeah, I get that. When the company that bought my last company, between sales and marketing was always that, right? It's like, oh, these MQLs are horrible. It's like, to your point, when you tell the whole story, you can't just be like, oh, this is the gate that everything's dying at. No, no, it's not,
Yeah.
right? Because we found out that three of the salespeople weren't following up with anybody ever. It's like, thanks for just shooting those potential customers right in the face and leaving them on the side of the road. So
But
I
that's
get
a
your
good
point.
point. That is a good point though, because you said sales. So sales versus marketing has always been, the battle of the ages, right?
Yeah.
Part of what I do when I audit a company is I don't just look at the systems within marketing. I'm asking customer success. I'm asking sales. Marketing is the current behind the entire flow of pipeline. So our
Yeah.
job is not done when we hand it off to sales and say, "Have a nice day." No, marketing is really that force behind everything, including intention, retention, expansion, upsell, cross sell, all of that. So we touch everything. Besides finance, there's no department that does that. So you have to have that relationship with sales. You have to work together to make sure you're building that story together. Because again, it's a story, and you have to be on the
Yeah.
same page if you're going to tell the story together.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's not, it seems linear, but it isn't. I love the fact that you not only get that, but clearly drive that with your customers.
yeah. I've had
That's
founders
great.
before that will drill down, and there's one founder I have in mind that I worked with some time ago, and loved the brilliance of their mind. But on the weekends, they would go into the Google Ads account and go really granular and start asking questions about the really granular parts of like individual campaigns. And like, I saw this dip and then it went away. I'm like, you are so zoomed in right now.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not going to give you anything valuable to work against, right? That's not going to help you. So let's zoom out and talk about big numbers and money. Like, let's
Yeah,
talk
well,
about money. The accountant and me. Let's talk about the money. Do you have the
yeah,
pipeline? So,
that's great.
yeah.
So talk to me. So startups seem to be a pretty big portion of your client base. One of the things I always have avoided trying to start another SaaS company because I had a couple that, as you know, startups don't always work so great. Something comes up. Is it product first? Is it marketing first? Or is it both?
I have a controversial take on this that some marketers disagree with me. You cannot outmarket a bad product.
Yeah.
Your product has to be doing something unique. It has to be doing something different, and it has to be doing something well. Because at the end of the day, your product is what they're buying, is what they're sitting with. When the marketing goes away, when the salesperson goes away, they're going to use that product. So the product still has to be something usable. And I've struggled with some founders before that were basically marketing to me as the marketer what their product did. And it was very interesting because I would ask them, I go, okay, well, what's wrong with it? Like, where are the warts? Like, where are we going to trip up and find it? And they're like, no, it's perfect. It's perfect. And I'm like, don't market to me. That's my job. Just tell me
Yeah.
like it is so that I know where the pitfalls are and we can see how we can write messaging around it or how we can work around it or where does that pain point compare to the weaknesses of our competitors. And usually you have to go to the product team to get that information if
Yeah.
the founder is not going to be transparent about it. But nothing is perfect. There's no system that's wonderful and out there. But I really do think you need a strong product. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be worth something before you can go to market with it. Building buzz around it is amazing, but I have built buzz around products and done pre-marketing on products that never happened.
Yeah.
And that's really disappointing. And you lose a lot of credibility when you're talking up something and then it just never arrives, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. We had similar issues around our part. And, you talked about retention, right? We had really great churn numbers until we brought on some not so great products under the same guys. Like these things are great. They'll be perfect cross sell opportunities. Well, yeah, then all of a sudden our churn went from 3 to 9%.
Yeah.
And it's like, can we just tell the truth about where those kind of probably went sideways?
Yeah.
And until you can do that, right, you can start talking about where you're authentic, be authentic where you haven't been authentic about stuff. You're probably not going to also shift that for the positive.
Yeah. And
So
I
in
think
marketing
people
though,
are people are really
go ahead.
sensitive to the authenticity right now because of AI adding so much AI slop into the world. And everybody's like, well, is this real? Is this fake? Is this real? Is this fake? I think we've kind of turned the corner on knowing when things are real, but you can feel it. Like people are still out there using their brains, and if something doesn't smell right, they're gonna feel it. So you are better off being upfront and authentic about it and be like, oops, we shipped the wrong product. We're gonna roll back this update and we're gonna do a bug patch and we're gonna launch it even better. Like own it from the start and the crisis communication side
Yeah.
versus letting it and trying to paste over it and being like, no, it was all fine all along. Um,
Yeah.
there's power in being authentic at the right moments in marketing.
You can't, one of my old favorite sayings, you can't put chocolate on a mud pie and pretend it's a cake. So,
I mean, you can if you're
I,
3 years old.
yeah, that's true. They'll eat anything.
Right.
That's great. So let's try to cast the net out. I mean, obviously in the AI space, this is always part of this segment is, 2 or 3 years from now.
Yeah.
Um, where do you see not only KT, but um, AI? Like, what do you think is the obstacles and opportunities coming down the pipeline?
Well, the opportunities that have been coming up for me this year is I've been called in to do AI implementation for marketing teams. I love software. I love being nerdy and going into the code and geeking out on this stuff. So I was blessed to have a conversation back in 2023 with a friend of mine who's a professor who turned me on to ChatGPT very early. So I've been kind of
Hmm.
riding this wave of AI a little bit ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's really great that it was one of the things that I was putting time and effort into to actually see it take off.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
how it goes, but for my practice, I enjoy implementing AI into my practice. I've just started working on some partner projects where I'm building AIs with partners to enable sales teams, which is incredibly powerful, right? You can ask a question instead of having to call somebody up or look at a static one pager that doesn't speak to your audience.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on. So I'm doing AI implementation as part of my scopes of work. They're usually one-off projects. How ready is the team doing AI ready analysis on the team? Can they support an AI function if we were to put one in place? Building out the structure and then building out the actual agents or whatever is needed, the tech stack to support that in the company when the company is ready. That's a project that I've been asked for a lot, and I decided to start implementing it as part of my practice. And to go along with that, through some amazing conversations I've had with Noelle Russell and Lisa Adams, just with their work with AI, I've decided to start sharing more. I'm creating a Substack to basically share some of my AI practical workflows just to help other people get up to speed quicker. Um,
Nice.
in general, I think we are approaching the inflection point where people realize that AI is not the executive in the room, AI is the intern. The intern's
Yeah.
going to do the stuff you don't want to do or give you the first drafts, the first copy, and things like that. But I think we're realizing that on a quality control side, you can't let AI drive the bus yet. It's not an autonomous vehicle that's going to be able to do everything for you, especially not at a high strategic level. Some of the strategic plans that I've asked it to put together as thought exercises are garbage. And
Yeah.
they're out of line with best practices and learnings from the industry today. I think that ethical line of we can't replace teams with AI is really starting to show up, and people are seeing that, it's not man versus machine, it's man with machine, guided by strategy, guided by frameworks, and putting some guardrails in place to make sure that we can move faster together. I think that's where we're heading. And we're starting to see that both with the funding side of who's getting money to build this stuff, as
Yeah.
well as, the internal teams being like, okay, we implemented AI, it's not what we thought, and we have to still have people doing this work.
Yeah. 100%. And I mean, who knows if it continues to advance 4 years from now, we'll see what may or may not come out. But people, that's the thing people don't give with AI is LLM is, while cool. I mean, it's amazing what it can do. It's also not technically, in my opinion, artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
It's just looking up a lot of data against another lot of data. I mean, it's great for research and some other things, but to your point, unless you can manage a company with a army of interns,
Yeah.
it probably is not going to do what you think it might be able to do yet.
No matter how cool the robot, you still need somebody to do maintenance.
That's right.
It can't
That's
do
why every
maintenance
one of
on
my
itself.
all my developers are like, we're out of a job. I'm like, same thing. It's like, to take a breath,
Yeah.
relax. I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
I
And we
will
may become
say,
robot mechanics.
yeah, I will say as an extension of that though, that the employees out there that are afraid of AI and they're afraid, it's largely fear that I notice. There are some ethical concerns that people have about energy usage and things like that, which are very
Yeah.
valid. Um, But most of the people that I talk to from a hiring perspective, because I do a lot of work helping people rewrite resumes and get new jobs, um, they're afraid that they're going to be replaced or that their role is not valuable enough. And I will tell you that fear is the number one killer. If you do not learn AI because you are afraid of AI, you will be replaced by AI, because the
Yeah.
future is the people that can work together with this technology. And if you are refusing to learn a new technology and get with the times, you'll be left behind. Like those are the only people that will be left behind, are the ones that are so resistant to it that they refuse to even attempt to learn how they can work with it. I think that's
Yeah.
very true.
Ditto. So if you listen to this and you're a founder who wants fewer moving parts and more revenue, Catherine builds systems that earn your keep, their keep.
Hmm.
I guess that's a
Do
tough
more with
one. Bad
less.
English, right?
Yeah. Do more with less, or clean up your systems.
Both, probably, right? And then you can connect with her on LinkedIn or at ktcreativity.com.
That's right.
Katherine, thanks for sharing your story with us and showing us how empathy, execution, and smart systems can actually coexist.
Great chatting with you.